Sudden, crushing weight on the chest. In the dead of night, a heavy, suffocating pressure suddenly pressed down on the chest. Let me tell you from the beginning, when we first moved into that house, everything seemed normal, almost too normal. It stood at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, where the streets became eerily empty after sunset. The air felt heavier than usual, and even though the house looked beautiful from the outside, there was something unsettling about its silence. The first night, we were still unpacking. The room smelled of old wood and damp walls, as if the house had not been lived in for a long time. Every sound echoed strangely: the creak of the floorboards, the rustling of the curtains, even the ticking of the clock seemed louder than it should be. Still, we tried to convince ourselves that it was just our imagination. A new house, a new environment, of course, it would take time to adjust. But deep down, could feel it. Something about this place was watching us. As the night deepened, we settled into our rooms. From outside, the wind blew across the trees, making strange whispers against the windows. It was hard to fall asleep with that constant uneasiness in the air. And then, a faint noise came from the corridor, like footsteps, slow, dragging, as if someone or something was moving inside the house. We opened the doors, looked around, but found nothing. The corridor was empty, cold, and silent. Everyone laughed nervously, pretending it was nothing more than the sound of settling wood. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that it wasn't the house creaking. It was something else, something alive. That night, none of us truly slept peacefully, and we didn't know then. This was only the beginning of the nightmare. The second night in that house was far worse. At first, everything seemed quiet, too quiet. We thought maybe the strange sounds from before were just part of the house settling, maybe just our nerves. But deep inside, I knew something was waiting for us. It was close to midnight when it happened. I had just fallen into a shallow sleep when I suddenly felt weight. Heavy, suffocating weight pressing down on my chest. My eyes shot open, and that's when I saw it. A shadow, a pitch-black figure crouched on top of me. Its face was impossible to see. No eyes, no mouth, no details at all, just darkness shaped like a human body. But the most terrifying part was how real it felt. Its hands were pressing me down. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was locked, as if something had stolen my voice. My arms and legs wouldn't move. I was trapped. The figure leaned closer, its presence colder than ice. My chest burned, as if my lungs were being crushed. I could hear nothing except my own panicked heartbeat pounding in my ears. And then right beside me, I heard breathing. Slow, deep breathing. That wasn't mine. When I finally managed to blink, the figure was gone. But the pressure, the weight on my chest, lingered for a few seconds before fading away. The next morning, I had to convince myself it was a nightmare. But when I nervously shared what I had experienced, my heart froze because I wasn't the only one. One of my family members said the same thing had happened to them. They woke up unable to move, with a black shadow pressing them down. Another said they heard footsteps running past their bed in the middle of the night. It wasn't a dream, it was real. And from that night onward, the darkness in that house was no longer just around us. It was on us, inside our rooms, inside our sleep. After the second night, none of us could sleep peacefully anymore. The house had turned into a trap of silence and fear. We would lie awake, pretending to rest, but every creak of the wood and every rustle of the wind made our hearts stop. Then came the third night, the night of the footsteps. It was past midnight. The moonlight spilled weakly through the half-open curtains, casting pale shadows across the walls. The house was still, so still that we could hear the ticking of the old clock in the living room. Suddenly thump, thump, thump. Footsteps. Not outside, not in the street, inside the house. At first, they were slow, dragging, as though someone was walking barefoot on the cold floor. Then, without warning, they grew faster, like someone was running. The sound rushed down the corridor, right past our doors. We froze in fear, too terrified to even breathe. One of us whispered, "Did you hear that?" But before anyone could answer, the footsteps came again, louder this time. Running, stopping, running again, back and forth, like someone was pacing the hallway, restless, furious. Gathering courage, I slowly opened my bedroom door, hoping to find nothing, but what I saw made my blood run cold. The corridor was empty, yet I could clearly hear footsteps echoing against the walls. Fast, heavy, and invisible. The sound moved closer, rushing straight toward me. In panic, I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking, my heart about to burst out of my chest. Inside, my family was trembling too. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else cried softly, but no one dared to move. The footsteps circled our rooms for what felt like hours. Sometimes stopping right outside a door, sometimes running past so fast, it felt like a storm was sweeping through the hallway. By dawn, everything was quiet again, but none of us could forget what we had heard. Those were not the footsteps of a living person. It was something else, something trapped in that house, running, searching, and waiting for us. By the fourth night, fear had swallowed our lives. None of us could sleep. The shadows were growing bolder, the footsteps louder, and the black figure that pressed down on us no longer felt like a nightmare, it felt alive, hungry. We realized this wasn't something we could fight on our own. So, out of desperation, we called for a local exorcist, a man known for dealing with the unseen. He arrived one late afternoon, carrying nothing more than a small bag, a wooden stick, and a quiet, stern expression. The moment he stepped into the house, he froze. His eyes scanned the walls, the corners, the ceilings as if he could see something we could not. Finally, he muttered in a low, grave voice, "This house, it was not meant for the living. Do you know what stood here before?" We shook our heads. He looked at us, his face pale, his eyes sharp. This land was once a cremation ground. Souls were burned here, but not all of them found peace. Some remained restless. Some became bitter. What you are facing are not just shadows. They are jinn, drawn to suffering, feeding on fear. The words struck us like ice. Suddenly, every sound we had heard, every shadow we had seen, made a dreadful kind of sense. That evening, as darkness approached, the exorcist began his work. He lit incense that filled the rooms with thick smoke, muttering verses under his breath. He walked from room to room, sprinkling water, tapping the walls with his wooden stick, as though forcing something out of hiding. At first, nothing happened. Then, all at once, the house groaned. The windows rattled violently, though the night was windless. The lights flickered, shadows darted across the walls. And then footsteps again, loud, furious, running from one end of the house to the other. The exorcist raised his voice, chanting louder, commanding the unseen. From the corner of my eye, I thought I saw the black figure again, crouching near the ceiling, its form twisting and writhing against the smoke. The exorcist slammed his stick to the ground. "Leave this place," he shouted. A sharp, piercing wail filled the house. The walls trembled, doors banged shut on their own. It felt as though the entire house was alive and resisting. But slowly, painfully, the chaos began to subside. The footsteps faded, the shadows thinned, the heavy air lifted, little by little. When it was finally over, the exorcist was drenched in sweat. He turned to us and said firmly, "You must keep this house sealed at night. Never leave a room empty, and never, ever invite darkness in with fear. They feed on it." From that night onward, the house grew quiet. The black shadow did not return. The footsteps ceased. For the first time in days, we slept peacefully, but the exorcist's warning still lingered in my mind. If those spirits had been here for so long, if they were truly bound to this land, had they really left? Or were they only waiting in silence for us to let our guard down? After that night with the exorcist, the house became unnervingly quiet. The air felt lighter, the shadows seemed ordinary again, and the silence no longer carried whispers or footsteps. For the first time since we had moved in, we could finally breathe without fear. Days turned into weeks, and nothing happened. No weight pressing on our chests at night. No footsteps rushing through the corridor. No black figure crouching in the corners. It was as if the nightmare had been erased, as if the exorcist had sealed away the darkness for good. We told ourselves it was over, that the spirits had left, that the land, cursed and restless for so long, had finally been put to peace. But deep down, none of us were truly convinced, because sometimes, in the dead of night, when the house was silent and everyone was asleep, I would wake up without reason. The room would feel heavy again, not like before, but enough to remind me, enough to make my skin crawl. And then I would hear it. Not loud, not clear, just faint, almost like an echo in the distance. The sound of running footsteps. I would lie there frozen, telling myself it was only my imagination. But every time, the sound would grow a little louder, a little closer, before fading away completely. The exorcist had warned us, they feed on fear. Never invite them back with your weakness. So, we never spoke of it again. We locked every door, every window. We prayed before sleeping. We tried to live as if nothing had happened. But sometimes I wonder, what if the silence isn't safety? What if the silence is their way of waiting, watching until the day we let our guard down again? And when that day comes, will they return as shadows in the night? Or were they never gone at all? The end. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.